Donald Trump's 2020 campaign seemed so transfixed on eking out a few extra percentage points of the black vote that his largest erosion ended up being amongst white voters, particularly white men.
Oh no, Trump went with the Platinum Plan and tried to address some of the issues in black America so more black people would come to the fucking Republican Party? Oh no! Some white people didn't like that because their fifis got hurt? Oh no! Okay, so I'm at the gym and I'm just going through my, subscriptions looking for something to listen to because I don't really listen to music at the gym because I'm just an information sponge. I'm always watching everybody. And so I watch all like the bigger channels on the left and the right, try to get an idea of, things that they're talking about, where they're getting their talking points, why they think these certain things. And there's nothing on, it's the middle of the day, nothing on. So I go, okay, well, Paul Joseph Watson has something, whatever, all right. And holy crap, I really am hesitant to use this word because it's lost all of its meaning. But this video, this is actual neo-Nazi rhetoric. I'm not being hyperbolic. I really hate using that word unless I really feel it's applicable. Because I'm not going to be one of these fucking clowns like Vosh who calls everything right of center Nazism. I'm not about that. Or some of these other lefties that will say everything that's racially insensitive or racist conflates with that ideology, right? Because that's not true, right? Because I've actually talked to some of these people, like sort of like the Daryl Davis approach, right? I'm like, why do you hate us? Why do you hate me? On what grounds, right? So I've talked to like Klansmen and some neo-Nazis. I separate them because ideologically they are different. But that's why I'm saying I'm trying to take his words in this video. I'm going to show you. And I'm trying to put it in the best possible light. And I said, even in the best possible light, this sounds like them. And I've been getting concerned with the right and certain people. Like, you have people like him, Tatum, Candace, Matt Walsh, Mark Dice, pushing this like white victimhood complex or white persecution complex. And it's very dangerous to do this. They're trying to make them feel persecuted for things that have nothing to do with them being white. Right? Like certain things, like Karen being a racial slur towards white people. It's not. Okay? We call black women Karens. We call black men Karens if they're acting like, or Darren, whatever you want to call them. But that's an example. They're trying to make them feel persecuted for everything. And the reason this is dangerous is because, and I have been told this by one of them personally, is because this makes it easy for them to recruit. And this is why I don't like them going down this route. And I only hear what about the black victimhood complex? Look, okay, that is a thing, but pointing out certain past events and how they transition into current events and the current state of things, that's not the black victimhood complex. The black victimhood complex is, we all know that if you've lived in a black area, we all know that guy that's been on welfare for 2 years, won't look for a job, and then says, it's white people keeping me down. That's the black victimhood complex. That's a totally different thing. But I gotta show you this, and I just gotta warn you, don't go down this route. Do not go down this route.
A dire warning from Russia about the role demographics could play in the decay of America. Vladimir Zhirinovsky, leader of the LDPR party, sensationally claims that inter-ethnic conflict in the United States will lead to white Americans fleeing to Canada, Australia, and even Siberia. Zhirinovsky...
So right off the start there, I would say, okay, and? So if a bunch of white people don't like it here anymore and want to leave because of some racial tension, okay, so there you go.
He says the US is on the same crumbling path towards collapse that the former USSR stumbled upon decades ago. He predicts non-white violent separatist movements will tear America apart.
Which ones? I'm waiting. I can already hear the BLM organization because the movement is an entirely different thing. And the rioting and ignoring the fact that Antifa was there too, which is basically an all-white organization. But But they're not racial separatists though. Even the BLM organization, they're not racial separatists. Sure, you have some in there, but and you don't really have any power in anything.
Similar to how the Soviet Union disintegrated as a result of ethnically diverse republics breaking away from the late 80s on.
Already, this because I have a friend who's a huge history buff. There are a lot of reasons why the Soviet Union fell. So the fact that it's because there was ethnic diversity in the Soviet Union is historically completely inaccurate.
Onwards.
We in the Soviet Union for 70 years fed the national fringes of the country at the expense of the Russians, and in 1991, when they made a fuss and started shouting that they were leaving the USSR, the Russians didn't come out to defend the country, simply because they didn't understand that it was their land.
The 70.
And America isn't. So if you're trying to make comparisons to America, America is not white people's land. Like, I've always hated this sort of talking point that I've heard that white people built the country. They just bring up that Europeans made the rules. And because we teach history from a very Eurocentric perspective, they don't bring up how, like, Hispanics, the Chinese, and black people contributed to building this country. And how critical they were in the building of this country. And Native Americans. Sorry, forgot about y'all, but my bad. But yeah, the fact that this was a country built by white people is historically inaccurate.
25-year-old firebrand now sees an almost identical situation unraveling in the US.
There are no national fringes there, but there are African Americans, Mexicans, non-whites in general, who are already dictating their will, and whites are increasingly forbidden to talk about their rights, their culture, their history.
Okay, what is our will? In terms of black people, what is our will? You want to define this? Let me point something out here. I've always said this, that CNN, MSNBC, all of these people, the right's always like, I don't get manipulated by them. I'm smarter than them. No, you absolutely do. Because for some reason, like I said, the media portrays, like it did portray the rioting, a specific way. And they bring on their tap dancers because the right and the left both have their tap dancers. CNN, MSNBC, all of them bring on their white tap or their black tap dancers to say get whitey because white liberals like to hear that. That's something they like to hear. But then the right takes that and thinks that's representative of what we want. We don't. Whole addressing history and how certain things in history have never been fixed, that's not saying get whitey. That's a different thing. But the right has been trained, the white conservative base has been trained because they were basically just being contrarian to the neoliberals, started to believe that any grievances that Black America had with certain histories in general is an attack at white people because MSNBC brings on their tap dancers who say get whitey. This is what I mean by the right absolutely gets manipulated by MSNBC and CNN and all of them. It's very rare you see them actually bring on like prominent black community members that are not interested in either side of this. But besides that, I'm always going, what is our will? I want to know what this is. And what is this? Whites are forbidden to talk about their rights. Where? Where is that happening where they're saying, white people, you cannot talk about your freedom of speech, you cannot exercise your Second Amendment, you can't do, but black people can? Where is that happening? Where are the people advocating, like, for example, that the Second and Fourth Amendment or something like gun rights and unlawful search and seizures should only apply to minorities? Who is arguing that? I'd really like to see that. And no one's forbidding them to talk about their culture or their history. If someone challenges the Eurocentric worldview of like American history that is taught, that's not forbidding white people to talk about their history. That's just saying, hey, that certain worldview you have been taught throughout the years in the schooling system isn't exactly accurate. Right? Okay.
The nationalists went on to assert that in 10 years, white Americans will be rushing for the exit to safe colonies in more stable white countries such as Canada or Australia.
So, because there'll be more black and Hispanics in America, America will become destabilized and the white people will flee? Does anybody see how racist this is? How incredibly racist this is?
They might even ask us to settle a few million people somewhere in Siberia.
Zhirinovsky thinks that the exodus will lead to a brain drain that will ultimately trigger the decay and disintegration of the United States.
The decay and disintegration of the United States will come from too many black people. Okay. Not if there's less white people in the US, apparently America will fall apart. Yes, because don't you know white people were holding this entire country together? Okay, I can't even begin with how unbelievably racist this is, and if anybody takes what he's saying right here seriously, get out of the right. We don't want you. We don't want you. If you're a Republican and believe this, you should be yeeted from the party and never come back. Go make your own little fringe crazy party that will never win. Anyway.
The new majority will not be able to maintain the same high level of technological development, economy, life, democracy, and so on.
So, if again, there's too many black people in the country, if say, for example, black people or black and Hispanic becomes the minority, technological development will fall behind. Yes, because that's white people do that, right? The economy will decay and democracy will fall apart because there's too many black and brown people. What? That sounds like racial superiority. The common talking point we get from the racists is the state of Africa, and they don't even understand why Africa is poor or where it's the state it's in. Not even that all Africa is even poor. There are completely rich parts of it that are doing perfectly fine. But like, they don't understand that there's a lot of reasons why technologically they didn't advance as fast as European nations. It wasn't because they weren't as smart. For example, Africa was way more spread out when there were still like small villages and tribes. Africa was significantly more spread out than European nations, which were a lot closer together. And when you're very far apart, when you're very spread, away from each other, technology tends to advance slower. It's not because niggas be stupid, like apparently this dude is implying. And again, it comes to areas where there was there was a lot of natural resources that were rich in one area or got overused in another area, which caused resource shortages. That's a geolocation issue, not an intelligence issue. And yes, of course, because white people did come over to Africa and start doing shit over there too. It's really complicated. It's not because niggas are stupid. Even now, the state of its economy heavily has to do with China keeping corrupt politicians in power who are letting them come in and extract their resources. Like I said, if you just see it through racial lens, it's because you're fucking stupid.
Go on.
I think that white people are committed to being villains. We gotta take these motherfuckers out.
Of course, pulls out, left-wing tap dancer, right? This is the same shit where the left says all black conservatives hate themselves because they'll pull out Tatum and Candace Owens. I can play this exact same game from the other side. So please, miss me with this, you don't get manipulated by left-wing media. Yeah, you do.
Zhirinovsky's warning is somewhat similar to that of Soviet defector Yuri Bezmenov. In 1980,
I have watched that video because I've liked this video. It is nothing similar to what he said.
1984, Bezmenov revealed plans by the KGB to subvert the United States. Not by using cloak and dagger spycraft or funding violent revolutionaries, but by using, quote, active measures, namely ideological subversion and psychological warfare.
What does that have to do with the racial demographics of America? What Yuri Bezmenov argued was he said they will find any way they can to pit people against each other. He gave examples. He did give race as an example. He also said gay and straight was another example. Okay. So why are you just focusing that he said these are differentiating lines that the Soviet Union will try to divide us on? He said gay and straight. He said, they'll try and black and white, men versus women. They even do state by state and where you're from. Again, does he show that part in this? No, he doesn't show him saying that. Gee, I wonder why.
Understand what's going on around you. You are in a state of war, and you have precious little time to save yourself. is a slow process which we call active measures. With a violent change of power, structure, and economy, period of normalization. Disaster is coming closer and closer. The danger is real.
The KG
See how he chopped that up? Go watch the original Yuri Bezmenov interview from 1984. He does not say because of racial demographics are changing, this will happen. He never says that in that video.
KGB no longer exists, but thanks to forces deeply embedded within the American establishment, the same process appears to be happening anyway.
Here's the results of the 2020 census just came out, and for the first time in American history, the number of white people went down.
Again, I guarantee you that audience is like all white liberals. Because white liberals just like to say this stuff because it's trendy. Do you see those neoliberals moving into the hood and trying to fucking help fix it up? No, because they don't care about us. Do you see them advocating for policies that help black people? No, they want to, they want to remove our Second Amendment rights, even though we live in dangerous neighborhoods, which then put people at the mercy of the gang. You have those white neoliberals that took defund the police as abolish the police, a policy that black people don't agree with. But I'm like, neoliberals have always been like, they go, oh, white people suck. And then as soon as you have a black person disagree with them, they'll call you a fucking traitor to your race. Neoliberals just hate everybody that's not them.
Whether it be critical race theory in schools, racial self-flagellation on university campuses, or the cultural colonization and iconoclasm of the Black Lives Matter movement.
The Black Lives Matter movement is not a... Black Lives Matter movement was dealing with issues like black issues, and then Black Lives Matter came along, the organization came along, turned it into a race hustle and a political power grab. Those are completely different things. Completely different. But like I said, these white ignorants seem to think the BLM organization is a representation of us. Do you think most black people, who are very traditional and religious, agree with dismantling the nuclear family? I can already hear the single motherhood rate. That stat is based on marriage. That is different.
If y'all didn't know, this is the MSC, and frankly, there's just too many white people in here, and this is a space for people of color.
See, it's because, like I said, these neoliberals, like I said, mostly white neoliberals who implement this, tend to get traction on the right because they go, left are the real racists. I can find you plenty of instances of black people being attacked by white people. Again, we just had Ahmaud Arbery happen. And that was race-based. Again, if you look at the evidence, that was absolutely racially motivated. But yes, let's pull out certain instances to make sure it only shows that black people think this way.
Americans have been re-educated to hate their history, hate their country, and hate themselves.
Got down here real low and looked up to you and said, the history of my race against your race, and I'm sorry.
Now,
So? That was clearly a virtue signal, but so? Okay.
Zirinovsky's known for his confrontational style and his spicy hot takes. But outside of Putin's government, he's the most popular political figure in Russia.
And this is Russia. This is a completely different country with a different history. What? He's doing the Tatum thing. Might makes right. We can go into a might makes right in tons of other countries that didn't end well. But okay, yes, black people are out to get you. Okay.
When he speaks, people pay attention. But are Americans paying attention? Donald Trump's 2020 campaign seemed so transfixed on eking out a few extra percentage points of the black vote that his largest erosion ended up being amongst white voters, particularly white men.
Oh no! Trump went with the Platinum Plan and tried to address some of the issues in black America so more black people would come to the fucking Republican Party? Oh no! Some white people didn't like that because their fifis got hurt? Oh no! Yes, let's just leave them to rot. Yeah, let's just leave black people in their hoods to rot. Let's not do anything about that. Let's not put in, like the Platinum Plan wanted to do, better education, how to start businesses, all this stuff, because white people don't like it. What? What happened to the rights? We're all Americans. We're all in this together. As soon as Trump goes, all right, let's focus on the black community right now. They're having troubles with this. They're upset, and you go, oh no, you shouldn't do that because they're not a big enough voting bloc? This is what prompts up the history of systemic racism. He's literally arguing Republicans should just ditch black people. Then, you're going to see later in this video, he complains that black people vote Democrat. What? So yes, offer them nothing and literally let the other party, at least, they're usually lying, but offer something and then be surprised when they don't vote for you? What? Again, he's complaining about dividing on race, but then he just divides on race. He says because black people are not a big enough voting bloc, we shouldn't consider their problems. The right shouldn't consider their problems. What is this Okay.
Republican establishment and Trump's biggest supporters outside of Tucker Carlson were and are petrified of even mentioning demographics. The media monsters.
Why? They never ask themselves why. And then we're going to go on to see where I think we get into, like I said, I've already showed you, we're getting into the neo-Nazi rhetoric, right? Saying too many white people fleeing and black people becoming the majority, or Hispanics becoming the majority, will lead to the fall of America. So what is the solution? Because it sounds like what they're advocating for is an ethno-state. This is where I said he's getting into that territory. Klansmen don't believe in the ethno-state. They're segregationists, it's a little different. He's advocating, it sounds like, I'm doing the most charitable interpretation I can, that we should move to the ethno-state. Where's the lie?
There's anyone who questions whether the browning of America might be anything other than a fantastic thing as a dangerous extremist. They've also
Why does black people, demographics, and Hispanic and whatever, Asian, Native American, why does that scare? If any white people think that's bad, why? Why do you think that's bad? Why are you scared of us? This is why white flight is actually still a thing. Why are you so scared of us? What, do you think we're going to come after you? If so, why do you think we're going to come after you? Just ask these questions. I find when you start asking these questions, you get these really racist answers that, like, all of us hate white people and we're all going to come after them if we get control of the system. And it's like this fragility. It's like crying like children because, oh no, things are getting too black. I thought we were all Americans. Now that only applies to his logic, that only applies if you're white. Okay.
entrenched this bizarre form of doublethink, where if you dare suggest the demographic decline of white people in America is part of a ploy to flood the country with a dependable migrant voting bloc, or
he completely just did a non sequitur there. He completely just jumped to something else. Less white people, so bring in Hispanics? This is replacement theory nonsense, and two, that was a non sequitur to what he was just arguing, which again sounded just like a freaking ethno-state. What? Okay.
or the whisper it, diversity isn't a strength, you're a racist.
That depends on how it's implemented. If you just throw people in a bunch of different positions because of their race, of course that doesn't work. If you're bringing in people from different racial backgrounds that tended to live in different areas, that's a completely different situation, but okay.
Racist evil conspiracy theorists. But if you openly embrace diversity as a progressive means of replacing those obsolete, bigoted white boomers, that's a high status opinion and you're a sophisticated politico.
So neoliberals, they don't believe a word they say anyway.
When we get to 2042 or 2045, whatever year you want to use, that we actually will not be suffering from what other countries like South Africa have, which is having the numbers but not having the power.
Why would it scare you if black people became the majority and had political power? Do you think we go after you? Do you think the majority of black people think we're out to get whitey? What is wrong if America became majority black? You're gonna have to explain this to me. Because it sounds like we think, or feel a certain way or act a certain way along racial lines. Because this is what it's sounding like. That you're conflating the BLM organization with generally what black people think, which is not true. So why does this scare you? Browning of America, why does it scare you if we're a multi-ethnic country? Okay.
We want, people say demographics are not destiny. Well, we're trying to make it destiny. Yes. So that's the work that we're doing.
Amen.
The New York Times lauding the fact that changing demographics turned Virginia solid blue. Joe Scarborough, quote,
"Why, though? Why?
Demographics are a freight train for Democrats, carrying them into the future. The GOP's actions will accelerate their collapse."
He literally didn't realize what he just did. He literally said Trump shouldn't target the black voting base because of these white people's fee-fees. So he's saying Republicans should offer nothing to, minority groups, and then be surprised when those minority groups will vote Democrat. How does anyone take this fucking clown seriously, bro? I am at a loss. This is like the IQ of cold water.
The future belongs to Democrats. Apparently, it's...
Why though? See, this is what he's doing. He thinks black people vote Democrat because black people just do that. He never thought, why do black people vote Democrat? His conclusion was a very, again, racist conclusion that was, they're black or they're Hispanic. So we think a certain way because it's ingrained with the melanin in our skin? Because that's what it sounds like you're saying, because you're not bringing up, you just said Republicans shouldn't offer anything to minorities because it might anger white people? Okay, then the minorities will vote for the party that actually addresses them. What? This is basic politics. What the f is wrong with you?
It's only a form of decay if it hurts the GOP. That's the domestic picture. But what about on the international stage? How will the American regime continue to exert its influence on the world? The American...
Did it? He has spoken out against the military and industrial complex in the past. So now you're okay with it? Okay.
People no longer have the stomach for military adventurism and costly wars of occupation. And the American military now seems more interested...
Yeah, we shouldn't do that.
...in fighting for transgender representation than it does fighting actual battles.
Starting today.
What battles need to be fought right now? We're actually, you do know we're prepping for China, right? I don't know if you know this, but America has been prepping for China. But what other battles are there to be had right now? Just asking. What war should we be fighting right now? Okay.
Transgender individuals may openly join the U.S. military.
Yeah, good luck with that. Legacy media publications now talk about America exporting wokeness as a form of cultural imperialism. Carpet bombs.
Because it is? What do you think Latinx was? You know Hispanics rejected that, right? You realize that a lot of these minorities are overwhelmingly conservative, but the right offers them nothing, so they don't really have a choice. My personal choice that I tell people is don't vote. Because you already know the Democrats are going to lie to you. But I understand why people spite vote, because Republicans are so disgustingly unpalatable to minorities. Not conservatives, Republicans. Different. I don't think conservatives are racist. I don't think conservatism is racist. Republicans have that problem right now. And I already know, of course Democrats do. Before anyone even says it, I know Democrats are racist. They're just a little more subtle with it.
Replaced by mass societal subversion, demoralization, and colonization. Will Russia and China embrace diversity? Will we see mass BLM and gay pride parades marching through the streets of Beijing and...
Do you think black people agree with all this alphabet stuff? Do you ever notice these alphabet parades never happen in like the majority black ghetto neighborhoods? You know why that is, why, right? Same thing when these don't happen in poor Hispanic neighborhoods. You know why that is, right? Bring Drag Queen Story Hour to a fucking library in South Central, see what happens. You realize we don't like that, right? Republicans, you do realize we do not like this. I hope you know that. We're not on this alphabet shit. Never have been. Being pushed by y'all. It's being pushed. The RNC just had some like stupid pride thing. It is white people doing it. It's in the white communities. We ain't accepting this. What the hell are you talking about?
Moscow with that message, sponsored as it is in the West, to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars by some of the world's corporate behemoths. Yeah,
because corporations chase trends. I'm sorry the right sucks at capitalism. I always find that irony funny that the left can out-capitalism the right. It's really funny. I'm like, you guys lose because you don't know how to capitalism. That's why the companies are pandering to them, even though the majority of the country doesn't agree with it. Because y'all don't know how to capitalism.
Can't see it myself.
Sometimes children from the very young age, children are being told that they have a choice in becoming a girl or a boy. They're actually almost being imposed that's being imposed on them without consulting any children's psychologists or any professionals. Is a child really capable of making a decision like that? That almost seems like a crime against humanity, and all of it's done under the banners of progress. Well, if they like that, let them do that, and we'll see what happens.
Do you think, again, what does this have to do with the browning of America? I am shocked if you think you're so... I swear, some of these fucking white conservatives and these white Republicans are so out of touch. It amazes me that they think black people are on board with that statement. I guarantee you the majority of black people can be like, hell no, we ain't doing that here. Like I said, go into the ghetto neighborhoods and try to push this shit. You gonna get thrown out, bro. They don't tolerate that shit. We don't do that there. Okay? Because he keeps conflating this with the browning of America. It's white liberals pushing this. Oh my god, bro. Like I said, this alphabet shit's all there. The hell? This mass effeminization of men? That's happening in the white communities. You think that's coming into the black communities? What? I think every white conservative right now and white Republican, more so the Republicans and the conservatives, that think these things, I swear you should go have to live in the hood for a year. You should have to do that. I think your outlook will change so much if you just live there for 1 year.
No stupid Americans.
Is Zirinovsky's warning of separatism, balkanization, and racial segregation in America are all plausible? Could white people in America end up facing the same challenges as whites in South Africa did after apartheid? Well,
he doesn't define what apartheid is and how that worked. This is a fear-mongering tactic. What?
White people in America are already being denied life-saving medical treatment because of the color of their skin.
Look at this chart. It shows the scoring system. You'll notice that race often counts more than physical health. The state of Utah, for example, gives 2 points to anyone simply for not being white. You win if you're not white. If you have congestive heart failure at the same time, you get 1 point. So if you're a white congestive heart failure patient, that's not enough for you. In New York, writes Aaron Sabarium in a shocking new piece for the Washington Free Beacon, quote, racial minorities are automatically eligible for scarce COVID-19 therapeutics.
Wrong, that's not true, and I'll show you in a second.
Regardless of age or underlying conditions. It doesn't matter what kind of health they're in. All that matters is their skin color. Whites don't qualify.
Wrong, completely wrong. Let's go over to New York. Now, Utah, I'm not gonna go over Utah. If you want to, go check out Nuance, bro. He did a really good video on this, breaking it down, because Utah is completely different. But let's look at New York, right? So, it says, they show their, this is the latest guidelines, because there's a shortage on monoclonals, right? And so what he's talking about is this one right here. Non-white race, Hispanic, Latino ethnicity should be considered a risk factor as long-standing systemic health and social inequities have contributed to an increased risk of severe illness and death from COVID-19. Obviously, this is some neoliberal nonsense because if they're already at higher risk because of a lot of health reasons in these areas, they're already going to be at higher risk. So basically, there's no reason for this to say. They didn't say if you're non-white, you can't get it. This is just nonsense doublespeak. Because it's like, okay, they're already at higher risk. So they're probably going to already have some conditions. So there's no reason to put this in here other than to virtue signal. Okay? I don't agree with putting this in here, and I don't agree with rationing based on race. I'm saying what he said doesn't line up with what is said here. That is different. Again, Utah, go look at nuance, bro. That is a completely more crazy scenario. Utah's lost their damn mind. Which I don't even get, because, again, I think Utah's like the whitest state in the country, isn't it? Or Wyoming. I don't remember. It's one of them.
The American media covers up literal terror attacks targeting white people because they don't fit the narrative.
It was still never, the motive was never officially released. You can say it's likely he did that because of it, but you do realize we still have no solid motive on that, right?
Covering that story in the news.
It's all about the car.
The man, it's not the man who killed those people. It's an accident that was caused by an SUV.
Yeah, I agree. That's amazing how the media covered that. Apparently it was a Tesla self-driving car that did that.
A fucking SUV caused an accident? What are you saying?
Collectively demonizes white Americans as violent, deadly predators.
The woman beater. I'm just saying, if we're gonna play this game of we're gonna look through the Wichita guy, Wichita guy, whatever. Social media. Kyle Rittenhouse beat up a girl. We don't call him a woman beater. I said the most you could say about that guy based on his social media is he's racist towards white people, and that's a possible motive for why he did it, but we still haven't gotten a confirmed motive. The right just pushed that with no evidence. Other than, yeah, he hates white people. Okay. And when we get the motive, and if we find out that is the motive, then okay. Then we'll push that and say, this is wrong. This is wrong to target people based on their race and hit them. But as of right now, we only have a possible motive. Okay.
While gleefully salivating over their demographic decline, while kids across the country are indoctrinated into self-loathing because of the immutable characteristic of their skin color.
Critical race theory.
Here we go with CRT. Yes. I can't stand CRT, but the difference between me and the right is I've actually read some of the books on CRT, and I have my own reasons why I cannot stand it. The right has no clue what they're talking about when they say it. And yes, like I said, the reason I don't like this is because it's technically the truth that it's not taught in schools, but they teach this very get whitey type stuff that it's just absolute trash. But again, this is mostly white neoliberals pushing this. When you look in the classroom, you see these teachers are like white women. They're not usually black women doing this. So blame yourself. Do you think this is... It sounds like this is like one of those conspiracies against the Jews, but he's just applying this to black people now. Doesn't it? It does kind of sound like that.
It's an approach to teaching of American history and civics that argues systemic racism is woven into American law and institutions.
Critical race theory is not being taught in K-12 schools.
None of those states are teaching critical race theory in their K-12 schools, man. But it doesn't exist. You're sixth grade.
Yeah, I'm sick of this talking point too. It's really obnoxious.
It's not being taught critical race theory.
Critical race theory is not taught in elementary schools or middle school or high schools.
It's taught in law school.
Critical race theory, which isn't real.
Just to be clear, it's not.
I love that one. I remember I covered that one. It isn't real. I don't really have the books on it, but okay.
Not in the curriculum.
All the CRT stuff is trumped up dog whistling.
We do not teach critical race theory here in Virginia. It has never been taught.
You know what's sad about the Van Jones one on a little side note? Van Jones is totally a left-wing tap dancer. If you ever seen him talk outside of CNN, he's totally an actor. He's actually a pretty smart dude. It's just sad he's such a sellout.
It not being taught in schools, that's 100% correct.
Half of this stuff had nothing to do with, like, CRT being taught in schools. Some of it did, but some of this didn't. It's just because he bombarded people with it, but, you know, whatever.
While the federal government treats white parents who complain about that as potential terrorists.
Education authorities in the United States are asking the...
Yeah, I saw that. What the hell? And again, how does this have to do with the browning of America? This is where I'm like, dang, the solution you proposed earlier sounds like we need to create an ethno-state or make sure at least white people remain in the majoritarian seats, like, and stay in the majority and maintain the seats of power. Okay. Because apparently if black people get control of any institution, they will systemically target white people, which I ask, why do you think some black people would do that? Because some white people would say, oh, it's revenge. I've heard that, and I'm like, revenge from what? Because then they kind of trap themselves and have to admit systemic racism is true.
The government to use anti-terror laws and involve the FBI against parents who protest against the way their children are being taught.
These acts of malice, violence, and threats against public school officials have increased. The classification of these heinous actions could be the equivalent to a form of domestic terrorism.
While employees at firms that collectively hire millions of people are being forced to participate in white guilt struggle sessions, while the US...
Yeah, that's already illegal based on the 1964 Civil Rights Act, and the people who this is a responsibility of the people who work there. They don't want to speak out about it because they don't want to lose their jobs. Okay, if you don't want to sue or speak out about it because you're afraid about your job, what do you want anyone else to do about it? You have to do it. Like, you have to file the lawsuits. I don't agree. These racial training that are like, oh, only white people have to go to these things. Like, it's already illegal, but y'all ain't challenging it in court. People on the right, y'all ain't challenging this in court. Because you keep going, my job. Just like you did with vax mandates. This is your fault. This is white conservatives' fault. Because y'all cowards. That's why I always love how you go, look how effeminate the left is. And I'm like, well, you bow down to them all the time. Because you'll go, my kids are my job. Okay. All right. Well, you bow to them, so what do you want me to do?
The military-industrial complex is now directly targeting angry white Americans as the primary domestic extremist threat.
And I want to understand white rage, and I'm white, and I want to understand it.
And
See, Mark Milley is a piece of trash for a lot of reasons, mainly because, which I don't know if it's a crime because someone legally will have to explain, which is the whole China thing and what he did. And I was like, that sounds like conspiracy to commit treason, like the legal definition of treason. But always when they show that statement, I'm like, okay, he wants to understand that, okay, and I wanted to understand CRT, so I started reading the literature on it. And because I want us to understand CRT, that doesn't mean I endorse it. I can't stand it. But okay.
Top it all off, the President of the United States thinks the demographic decline of white people is a good thing.
Not only our Muslim communities, but African communities, Asian communities, Hispanic communities, and the wave still continues.
What's wrong with that? Black people having more babies, Hispanics having more babies, white people ain't having babies. Sounds like a you problem. Why are you scared of us?
It's not going to stop, nor should we want it to stop.
Why would you want black people to stop having kids? Y'all the ones who are pro-life. I mean, I shouldn't say y'all because I am too, but you know what I mean. Like, okay.
As a matter of fact, it's one of the things I think we can be most proud of. An unrelenting stream of immigration. Non-stop. Non-stop.
You can show Biden's words, but his actions don't line up because Biden's been deporting people like crazy. Biden's already deported more people than Trump has in all 4 years of Trump's office. Obama deported more people than I think all the other presidents combined. I don't give a fuck what Biden says. It's not what he's doing. You guys understand this? Like, okay.
Folks like me who are Caucasian of European descent, for the first time in 2017, will be in an absolute minority in the United States of America. Absolute minority. Fewer than 50% of the people in America, from then and on, will be white European stock. That's not a bad thing.
What
Not a bad thing. Unless, again, you hold racist views and think black people inherently think a certain way, or Hispanics inherently think a certain way by virtue of their race, and not because of other factors like history and the lack of recognition in these systems of power just being thrown to the side, in the case of the black community, just constantly being thrown to the side, while the neolibs do nothing except virtue signal by putting on left-wing tap dancers who say, we just want to get whitey, and it's like, no, we don't. Black people don't want to get whitey. We don't care about going after you guys. You guys realize this, right? We're, again, what's this, we're all American stuff.
Could possibly go wrong.
You know, like I said, the part where I said, yo, we're getting into neo-Nazi rhetoric was basically his solution was very implied to be an ethno-state. Very, very heavily implied. I'm just like, hey, if, again, if you're on the right and you actually agree with this, that you think us gaining more institutional power in any way will result on an attack on white people, leave. We don't want you. Any libertarians or Republicans, you know, that think that, get the fuck out. We don't want you here. Go make your little fringe, go make your little fringe party that nobody cares about, okay? And stop trying to come into the right and try to play the white victimhood complex on certain people who may not even be racist and probably aren't, but really ignorant. And then trying to change this into, you know, if more black people get into the Republican Party, they're gonna go after us, right? We don't want the demographics to change, otherwise they might come for us. If you truly believe this, I hope you realize you're gonna lead to the decline of the party you like, right? Because libertarians, they're not all about that. They don't really care about, you know, racial demographics and stuff. They're all chill. But I'm like, Republicans, I'm like, all right, murder yourself, have fun, push this narrative, see what the fuck happens. Don't come at me after this happens and go, Democrat, throw the election. Or, I don't understand why black people overwhelmingly vote Democrat. Because you say shit like this, dum-dums.